Now that we've seen a little bit about how Bokeh is designed and how it works, I want to take a chance to run through some of the things it can do. It's really a pretty powerful library for building interactive graphics. There's a lot you can do. So I just want to start by pointing to the reference guide. This has some documentation about all of the things we talked about before, the models and the plotting library, the layouts, and the I/O, which allows you to do notebooks and file outputs. So we're going to take a look at using the notebook output. So here we will load Bokeh and run output notebook. It's going to give us a graphic that it's successfully loaded. It takes a little while, so I've run this beforehand. And we'll do a few things. We'll create some data, right? And then we're going to create 3 scatter plots. So here we go. We create 3 figures, right? And we add each of these. We add each of these 3 graphics. So we add them in a grid plot, right? And then we use show. So to use Bokeh to actually render the graph that we've created, which here was a grid plot, we wrap it in show. And there's a few things which are pretty specific here that are done. So this is just a standard graphic. I guess there's really nothing special about this first one. But the second one uses xrange equals s1.xrange. So this is a programmatic way using the Python code to link the x ranges together. And similarly, the y range on this S2, the second graphic, is linked to the y range on S1. And we can see if we go to the third graphic, the x range is linked on this one as well. So when we actually run this graph, right, we can pan within each of these, and we can see that both the x and y are linked between the first and second graph, and only the x is linked between the first and third graph. Similarly, these carry through, so it's linked in both directions. So it's really pretty simple to do something that otherwise would be pretty complicated to tie these graphs together. So it's accomplished a lot in just a few calls. I'm going to also bring a mention to a way that I think kind of breaks through some of the boundaries between plotting libraries. So you've got kind of high-level stuff like Bokeh and Matplotlib, or Bokeh and Seaborn. Matplotlib is a little lower level. And there's kind of a fundamental divide between what the higher level tools give you in terms of charts and what kind of customizability you have with really low level stuff like D3. So, of course, this would be a lot of work in D3. And, by just adding this to their library, right, they can accomplish pretty complex interactions. And it's really easy to build these things. But there's kind of a break, which is that once you've got everything built in this high-level library, it's hard to build low-down customizations. And so Bokeh has gone a long way to trying to bridge this gap. And one way that they've done this is by enabling JavaScript callbacks. So these are pretty powerful. So I just want to bring some attention to what they do. So there's a bunch of examples here, and you can go look here. I'm just going to run through one of those examples. So this is just one of the examples pulled from their library. Right, and it's pretty simple, right? It's going to output this as a file. So when we run this, it'll actually open that file, and it's all contained within there, which is really slick. And here we can see we're just going to make a simple scatter plot here. This is our scatter plot, and we'll go ahead and make a second scatter plot, which is actually just empty. So there's nothing here. Similarly, it's the same width and height, right? But we'll define the x range manually, and yeah, that's all there is to that graph. And here's where it gets interesting. So we can add custom JavaScript callback on the first graphic. So we can add this callback on selection for the first graphic. So it's got the lasso select tool, right? And this callback will get called for that. We can write totally custom JavaScript here, where one of the really neat things we can do is we can refer to S2, which we defined in Python here. We can refer to that in JavaScript code that is getting attached to this graphic, right? So you can actually see that this is JavaScript. This is not Python, but we're referring to objects by the same name. So we'll go ahead and when we grab data. So we'll go ahead and get the selected data. the callback object selected data, we'll go ahead and add that selected data to the D2's X and Y. And we will, in D2, right, is what is added on S2. So we'll go ahead and change that on S2. So D2 is S2.data. We can push right to it, and we can tell S2 to change. So S2 is the second graphic. So when we look at what this actually does, right, we can go ahead and select points on the left, and they're going to show up on the right, which is really pretty slick, and it happens in real time. So this is just one of many callbacks you can get, and I think it really does kind of bridge the divide between having high level and low level interactions. So at least they're trying to do that. So you can do custom things, but you can also do high level simple graphics. So that's Bokeh.